Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, Stop Treating Every Subsidiary the Same. Good morning, good afternoon, or good day all over the place where you are. So we have a broad spectrum of people from all over the world. It's great.
Hello.
Hello, Chris. Yeah, we will wait a couple of minutes so that everyone can arrive.
Mr. Kramer, where are you located?
We are here in Munich.
In Munich, okay.
We have wonderful weather today after an awful week last week. Now we have a great autumn, a little bit Indian summer.
You're lucky. We have rain in Brussels.
Okay. It's good to work if we have bad weather. Good. Let's see. Now some people are arriving step by step. Let's wait another minute or two.
Yeah, will you be sending out the presentation later?
Yes, yeah, the presentation and also the whole webinar will be recorded and then also delivered to you so that you can also have a second look and also distribute it internally.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so this is our webinar in our monthly series of webinars. So we try to come up with every month with 1 hour of another topic. Last time we talked about digital liability, and today we will talk about subsidiary steering and how cyber risk quantification can help here. Okay, then let's kick it off. Again, welcome to our webinar about subsidiary steering and how cyber risk quantification can help you to have a risk-based steering of different entities within a group setting. So what will we do? We will talk first, let's see here in the agenda, a short intro, and then talking about the problem, why is subsidiary steering important and why does it matter? And then I will do a live demo in our dashboard using different charts to explain how this can be done in a demo case we have prepared for you. Right, and later on at the end, we have also time for a Q&A. But I really would prefer to have also questions and all your comments in between. So if you have a question or a comment, just raise your hand here in Teams or just raise your voice in the chat or in Teams so that I can also answer immediately. Okay. So we will talk then about the different aspects of subsidiary steering and Q&A. Yeah, introduction. My name is Hermann Kramer. I'm the founder of Squalify and a strategic advisor. A long history of Munich Re doing risk management in different functions. And out of an innovation initiative in 2019, we came up with the idea to build a service, Cyber Risk Quantification, not a risk transfer idea, but really as a software as a service. And yeah, with a lot of help of Munich Re and external people. And now we have built a new company, a 100% subsidiary of Munich Re, which is providing cyber risk quantification for large organizations to do cyber risk quantification better on the strategic level. My colleague Douglas Needham, unfortunately, he became ill overnight. So I had to decide whether I would postpone this webinar. But I decided to just do it by myself. But yeah, I would really appreciate if you could jump in for him a little bit and really come up with some interactive comments or questions that will really help me also to have a good flow and also some breaks to interchange with you, right? Good. Yeah. As you've seen, when you registered, we ask for some questions, and here is a little bit of survey about the answers from all people who are registered. First, it was about the challenge. What have the different registered different problems in respect of subsidiary steering? And the most important one was comparing risk exposure between subsidiaries. So it's always difficult to benchmark risk across different entities in a consistent way. The next one, equally important, is tracking cybersecurity maturity and improvements. So it's always to struggle to measure and communicate the progress if you steer. Then also allocating budget effectively and reporting to the board of management where other problems you have mentioned. So from the profile of the people who have registered, also on the right-hand side, you see we asked about how many subsidiaries each companies are steering. And the majority is in this sector between 6 and 20 subsidiaries, so quite significant, but also some between 21 and 100 and even 40% above 100. So this is already a signal of complexity and how difficult it is, and probably also how important subsidiary steering is here as a challenge. We have done already many different projects in this respect, helping companies to do a better subsidiary steering. And here I can also give a little bit a more complete picture of different problems we have gathered so far. So one is, yes, subsidiaries are not the same. That is the subject of the webinar, and it's true. There is a history of how groups have grown. Sometimes you have totally different industries within one group. Some are small, are bigger. They have different exposures. They have different IT settings. So therefore, it's always a risk of over or under spending or investment if you all treat the same. And as we have seen, sometimes you have too many subsidiaries. There are so many different ones and so many as such, how to focus on the most important ones. Is this just by turnover, or it would be better to do it with some kind of risk metrics? But what are the best ones? Then also normally risk assessment is done bottom up. So you have certain kind of risk assessment by subsidiaries, but how to make them normalize and aggregate them to a group level. This is also a challenge of many companies. Also then, if you have a setting where you have a group CISO and regional CISOs, there's sometimes also a challenge that the group CISOs are fighting for budget. Everyone wants to have more, but they can't really argue why they need more and how much they really need, right? And if there is a central budget, also how to distribute such a central budget to different subsidiaries. That is tricky. Yeah, and also about accountability of risk. Yeah, and typically in this lot of groups, they are not totally isolated in separate companies. Sometimes they are not independent. Yeah, for example, some are producing components which are then delivered to other subsidiaries, which then incorporate them. So, yeah, or they have shared IT infrastructure, for example, or whatever. So, yeah, how are then the different subsidiaries accountable if they are sharing risk? And then also another challenge is, especially if subsidiaries, and mostly of them, they are also regionally split, they have regional regulations, which are not all the same. Yeah, and also maturity standards are not the same, or even not captured the same. Yeah, US probably is using a NIST framework, European using more an ISO standard or whatever. Yeah, how to consolidate and normalize the different yeah, risk management frameworks or regulations. So I think this is a potpourri of different challenges, which I think, demonstrate why subsidiary steering is really a challenge for a group CISO. Yeah. Are there any additional topics or something I have missed? Or yeah, so that would be probably also a good first chance for interaction and questions. Yes, Chris?
Yeah, I did about 24 presentations around the world in different countries on the issue of cyber to the shipping industry, mainly to ship management companies and the shipping associations. Now, one of the main issues that came up, and we had several subsidiaries at the time, was that in some cultures it is very difficult to admit that you've been hacked or that you have a problem with cyber. And so there was a thinking, and we tried to do it at the time. I can explain that later, but to make a mechanism whereby people could anonymously report incidents. This is always avoided by everybody for some reason.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and it's all about trust culture and error culture in different industry. That might be a reason for all that, and that is probably similar to this kind of risk assessment, because reporting risk is something which is important to understand risk, to prevent in the future learning for something, or even to react and react quickly. Something happened, and there are dependency, as we have seen here within a group. That if something happened in one region, that the others should react quickly. So that is important, of course. Yeah. So that is one piece of steering. Yeah, more in the preventive operational risk. Here we focus a little bit more about steering in respect of the strategic steering, about, for example, budget allocation, risk assessment, how to normalize the risk assessment, and of course. Reporting standards are one piece of the risk assessment. Yeah, an important one. Good. Anything else? Good. Then, before we go into a kind of a solution or how we can tackle all these challenges, I would like to prepare you a little bit what cyber risk quantification can help. And here from Squalify, we can provide two different types of metrics, or I think metric is a good word, which we should understand that we can use them later on in the demo. So first of all, it's about risk balance scores. Yeah, this is a rather qualitative metric. But it's special because this is one of our kind of methodology within Squalify, because we separate the information security maturity from the exposure of a company. Yeah, the exposure is the inherent risk, independent how the company is protected. Yeah, so what is an exposure? This is how attractive a company is just because of the certain industry or region or size, to be hacked or to have a cyber incident. Yeah, this is the exposure. This is here on that chart on the y-axis, from very low to very high, right? And on the x-axis, you see the information security maturity. That is a standard measure in cyber risk management we all use. Yeah, and here we have a protection level from 0% from the left to 100% to the right. So here in this chart, and you will see it later also, we have here different bubbles because we differentiate risk by so-called consequence scenarios. And we have here a consequence scenario, for example, here. DB stands for data breach. So it's here from the exposure side, y-axis, very high. And from the information security level, it's so rather 40 in the middle, yeah, just before 50%, yeah, 46 or something like this. Business interruption here, BI, is a little bit lower. Financial theft and fraud is medium and a little bit better protected than the others. So this is a typical differentiation, how we can display a risk profile of a company. And that is important because now you see here that the combination of exposure and information security is the risk balance score. And the risk balance score is computed and displayed here on this diagonals. So here on that diagonal, the risk balance score is 2.0. And this is a fairly good one, which means here financial theft and fraud is rather balanced. The protection level fits to the exposure. While data breach, yeah, it's similar, protect a little bit less than financial theft, but much higher exposed. And the bubble should rather go to the right, right? That is something where cyber risk management come into place. Yeah, the improvement for data breach, yeah, must be more significant than BI, for example. The way to here is less long, or for ransomware also, compared to financial theft and fraud. So this is a kind of thinking we are using here to understand and separate exposure from maturity. And this kind of thinking you will see later on as one of the important steering mechanisms for subsidiaries. The next one is also something we do, cyber risk quantification, and expressing risk in euros and dollars is our core capability. And with our platform, we have different risk metric types. Yeah, we have, for example, the worst case loss is just on exposure, independent. Yeah, we assume almost all control failure. What can happen as a worst case scenario? We differentiate that also by the different consequence scenario. We have the expected large loss. This is also value at risk to a certain probability. You see here probability of 0.5% or 200 years recurring period. Yeah, then you have different extent. Yeah, that is the value at risk. Or we have the modeled average loss. Yeah, that is then what is the typical average loss for a certain average recurrence period. Yeah, so here every 7 years in average, there is an average loss of 77 million. These are 3 different types you will also see later to have a financially expressed risk, yeah, which is good to communicate. Here's also a good pit stop for questions or comments. Good. Okay, then you will see later on, we will come to that because it's important to understand the metrics. But before we go, I would like to introduce here our demo case a bit. So the idea was to have a demo case here for this 1 hour, which is not too complex, but is good enough to explain the differences. So here we have chosen the banking group. It's a German international banking group. The main subsidiary is in Germany. We have one in France, in US, and holding in Asia. And here are some information to show why they are different. Yeah? As I said, yeah, the main starting point was Germany. It's a classic bank. We still have many branches. It's not totally modern. It's still less digitalized, have still a lot of legacy systems. And it's grown out of Germany by acquisitions over the last 20, 30 years. Yeah, this is not untypical for a group. So this is a mothership, Germany. They have bought the French subsidiary 20 years ago. That is a more digitalized bank. It's a rather big bank, and number 4 in France. And they are already modern also in the respect that they do more and more online banking. Then we have USA. This group has bought the US subsidiaries. They are growing by just buying local regional banks, and incorporate them into a holding for the US. This is also not untypical. So they have done that over 10 years, and they will still buy other additional banks. That is their strategy. So they have a lot of integration, also IT integration to do. So this is a typically different composition of risk. And then last but not least, the subsidiary in Asia, it's a totally different concept. They just built a bank and as a greenfield from scratch. In some of the more developed countries, step by step as a greenfield. So they have state-of-the-art IT, also good protection level, and they have also a high share of online banking. So as you can see here, we have 4 different subsidiaries which have really a rather different risk profile, while they are all a bank, right? We treat them as a bank, but underneath they have a different risk profile, and therefore we should not treat them all the same. Good. So, and here also for demonstration purposes, you will see we will have 2 different views. In the first piece of the live demo, I will show you the executive reporting, which is about reporting to the board of management, where you always need to reduce complexity. And therefore here we have decided to put the first 3 of the subsidiaries are the most, the biggest ones, to have that as an executive reporting. But then for the more operational steering, you will see that we have used all 4 subsidiaries. Okay, so that is a setting. And therefore then I will move on to the live demo. If you have any questions before we start, you also a good point. Otherwise, I will start here. Yes. So this is our dashboard. On here, the first page, we have the executive report, and we have different dashboards what we can show. But today we will concentrate first on the executive report for board of management. And I will also use here some group reporting also to make you more familiar with the metrics before we also show the executive reporting for the subsidiaries. But first I will start the aggregated view on this banking group on group level. So I will not show all details, but at least make you familiar here, for example, with the worst case loss. As I said, this is the loss exposure in a scenario where almost all of the controls fail. What happens? Board members are interested. Sometimes they don't trust all the controls, and they want to understand if everything goes south, what could be the highest number? Can we digest? Can we survive such a situation? Therefore, we calculate that as a separate metric, and it's interesting. So here you see also how we differentiate it by the 4 consequence scenarios: business interruption, data privacy breach, financial theft and fraud, and digital liability. And then the overall one. You see here, the data privacy breach is the biggest risk, followed by business interruption. Okay. I will not go in all the details. As I said, here, the next metric is value at risk, or the expected large loss, how we call it. Again, this is to a certain kind of probability, because you have a different kind of protection level. The worst case will not happen, but to a certain kind of probability, it will be less. And so for a probability of 0.5%, this is a 200 years recurrence period, which is the typical recurrence period, what also BaFin and some regulators in Europe like to see. Yeah, that is the main metric. It's always then also on that value differentiated by the 4 consequence scenarios. And you see here, the overall metric is something 435 million, which you then can put into some context, for example, for some risk reporting or different kind of balance sheet metrics to put this number into context. This is something how you normally, as a group CISO, report risk, again, on group level. Good. Also on group level, it's always a comparison to the year before, a year-over-year comparison. You can show here the overall value at risk, the different risk drivers to compare it from year to year. So the risk landscape exchange, the exposure, the company grew. Nobody can how to say, manage that from the cyber risk management, but companies grow and therefore also the risk grows. And also the information security was improved and reduced the risk. This is something how you can report here. Yes, and then again, this view. As I said, it's important, the risk balance view. And here again, it's about the exposure and the information security maturity. As I've shown you here in the intro, the data breach is the highest exposure. The overall here, the business interruption, ransomware, and financial theft. And in this view, also interesting for board, we have also computed from our database benchmarking companies from the industry that the companies can see, and the board members, are we protected in line of our peers? And here, of course, you see here, they are not. They are behind their peers. They are better protected and sometimes less exposed. If you see here, this is a good view also to display a certain kind of risk profile in this exposure versus maturity view. This is very helpful to have an economic view. Your protection level should fit to the exposure. And if the exposure different, if the exposure is higher, you need a higher protection level. This kind of thinking is important. Good. And now we have more and more in that, but I will just focus here now on subsidiary steering. Now, the first time you can also present with our support to the board of management how your main subsidiaries, and here we have the 3, Germany, France, and USA, are comparing and to the group level. The group level is the first line. And here we have computed and we can, configure here different columns, but it's very clever to start first here with the exposure piece. Again, we have the exposure here, the overall maturity as a percentage, and computed out of those is the risk balance. And then if you see here the risk balance, again, it's between 1 and 4, and the lower, the better. So the subsidiary Germany with 2.7 has the best risk balance. It's below the group level. Subsidiary France is rather similar to the group level, but USA is above group level. And why is it above? They are similarly exposed, high to very high, but the maturity level is significantly lower than compared to all other. And that's the reason why they have the worst risk balance. So that is already a kind of finding. And here normally in the text field, This is what then the group CISO can explain in simple words, very accurate, high level for in board language, that the subsidiary USA need most attention. It's not just because it's the worst risk balance, but it's also driven because of importance, the value of risk behind it. And therefore here, for example, this overall 200 years moderate large loss, the value at risk, is a good indicator for risk. Yeah, as a computed risk, a calculated risk in euros, and with 288 million, it's the biggest value at risk compared to all other subsidiaries. So therefore, yeah, USA has a weight, yeah, compared to the other companies, even though they are not the biggest one by turnover, but by risk, they have the biggest one. And so therefore, it's really backed with data, with real data, that the focus should be on US. Right? This is the first statement. Good. That is status quo. What you always do also, kind of risk reporting, yeah, you do not do this only once, you repeat risk quantification and reporting. And here in this bank example, they do it every half a year. Every semester, they have a new number. And you can show here a little kind of history. And here we have 4 semesters, yeah, from second half of 2025 and starting first half of 2024. And you see here risk balance from 4 to 2.5, 2.5 the best for the worst. And then you see here every line has a different subsidiary. And the bold one is a group level. And now you can see here over time, while Germany and France were rather stable over time, they improved a bit. There was a drop overall, and that was attributed and caused by a drop of the US. Right? The risk balance here in the first half of 2025 reduced or increased significantly, so it went south. And the reason for that was that subsidiary USA bought another company, we called it company A in that semester, and it was consolidated. And in that situation, that was not very well protected, and also the exposure growth, both were then the reason for a higher exposure and a worse protection level, and therefore the risk balance become worse. They worked against it, but they couldn't really recover for the situation before. But yeah, that is then the situation and one of the reasons why USA is on that level. Also a kind of storytelling. Chris, you have a question or a comment? You are mute.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted a clarification.
Yes.
In case of a data privacy breach, do you include any regulatory fines like GDPR fines of 2% or whatever they allow, or NIS fines in the data privacy, or in the other one, the liability?
Digital liability is a different kind of risk. It's only for that risk if you sell digital services, yeah, and your service produces a risk at your customer, then the liability piece is a risk we are calculating. This is a separate thing, right? Data privacy breach is the risk of your company itself. If your company has been breached and the data are lost, then also all the fines, the legal actions, everything what is need to recover and to inform and notification, all costs are included here and computed.
Okay, thank you. So the liability for fines is included in that. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, of course. Yeah, it's an important piece. Yes. Yeah. We have handbooks. We can also really go in all the details if you like later on. Good. Good. That was now the first view on reporting on risk balance as monitoring over time. Now the last piece for this executive view is here also to show over the 4 semesters the development of financial metrics. And here we have decided to work on the 200 years value at risk, expected large loss, for only one of the consequence scenarios, which is the most important ones, which is data privacy breach. And then we have here the banking group and all the 3 main subsidiaries, with all the numbers. And you see here also in financial terms, if you look here with the purple bar on the blue bar here, the last one, how that developed from 260, it went down a bit. But then in that year when they bought this other company, it go up significantly from 256 to 281. And then due to some investment in security, they could reduce it to 262. So also here you can show a certain kind of development and express development over risk in euros or dollar values. This is something that is a language the board of management want to see. Okay, that is now the first piece of subsidiary steering. That was also one of the problems. How can I report in the board language, in financial terms, in easy and high-level strategic view, here the different exposures of or developments below the group level, on subsidiary level to the board of management. Good. Any questions so far or comments here? Good. Then next level would be go into a more operational analytic piece where the group CISO works for himself and also in his community of regional or distributed CISO network about subsidiary steering. And here we have a different dashboard within comparison. And here we have this type subsidiary steering for the banking group. And the first piece is similar to what you have seen already, but here we have included also the subsidiary in Asia. Currently, I'm working on another project where a large group is working on 10 subsidiaries. So you can extend that and have a good analytics and can filter and prioritize according to any kind of metrics you want. So that is very helpful for the analytics, right? Before you steer, you need to analyze and understand where are differences, where are here compared to the banking group certain kind of difference and what are drivers of these differences. For example, here Asia, compared to the others, have the highest exposure because they are highly transactional. Because they have a lot of online, everything is digitalized. If something goes wrong, then the business interruption exposure is the highest one. But they are very well protected. They have the highest protection level compared to all subsidiaries. Therefore, the risk balance is at 2.7 below the group level. Similar to Germany, where the exposure is smaller, the protection level is also smaller, right? So here you can see already, on the risk balance level, but also here on the financial metrics that you see, why is Asia not mentioned in the executive report? Because the financial risk is less exposed or less than the other subsidiaries. When you see here, the subsidiary, the value at risk for the 200 years probability is significantly lower compared to the other ones. And therefore, you can say, yes, they are highly exposed but good protected, yeah, you should rather focus on probably on the other ones. Good. Again, also here we have that view. We can have that also with 10, with 20 different lines. You see here also the Asia is incorporated here with this green dotted line. So nothing very special here. And also here with the financial values, you can see here Asia with the smaller numbers is also a view where you see, aha, from the euro value, from the financial risk, yeah, they are not the most important ones. Yeah, the biggest driver for the overall is the US risk. Yeah, this is the most important and most, how to say, scary piece in the group of subsidiaries for the group level. Good. So if you have analyzed, yeah, now the next step is how can you steer them? Yeah, the view so far was status quo and going back, understanding, yeah, the history and where does the group and all the the subsidiaries stand currently in their risk profile. And now it's about actions, steering. Yeah. And one way to steer is top down. I've seen most of large organizations do a top down steering. Yeah, so they have a group level strategy. And here for the banking group, yeah, we have some other demo we can show you separately why they came up here with a strategy, a 2-year strategy to improve the overall risk balance from currently 3.2 to a target of 2.2. Yeah, that is a significant increase within 2 years. And this challenge is, how can they achieve that? Yeah, in a distributed world with different subsidiaries, you could give them all the same target. Yeah, we would treat them all the same. But would that make sense? According to the analysis we have seen so far, obviously not. Yeah, we have different starting points. For example, when you see here in the analysis, the risk balance is fairly distributed. Germany similar to Asia, USA again the worst, France comparable to the group level. So therefore, it makes sense to have different kind of targets to come up with a target which would then serve and contribute to the group level target. That is a way how you can steer in a group via, I would say, decentral targets to improve the information security. So what they have done here in this demo is this target of the group level distributed differently to the different subsidiaries. So, for example, Germany currently status quo 2.7 to go to 2.0. This is below, more ambitious than the group target. Comparable to that, here, US, the worst risk balance 3.4, they need to go to 2.5, which is below the target, but it's a significant improvement. It's more than one point, and that is huge in 2 years. Yeah. Also 2.7 to 2.2 and so forth. So that was one way how the group CISO set different targets. And it's always clever if you have here a more strategic midterm view about 2 years, that you give also targets in between. So here also this CISO, group CISO has given also 1-year target in the middle, in between, to make sure that after monitoring in 1 year, they can have also a plan versus actual monitoring. So this is a way how this group CISO have done a different target setting to improve cybersecurity over time for the next 1 and 2 years. Another view is here the same in a different kind of chart. Sometimes this is easier to understand. Again, here on the y-axis, the risk balance for the worst, here 2, the best. Status quo is reddish. You see here the group level is a line, and that is a status quo. Yeah, that is currently 3.2, this line. Yeah, this is the group level. And then you see where each of the subsidiaries stand. For example, Germany stands here for currently with 2.7, and the target would be 2.0. France from 2.9 to 2.4. So the same numbers you have seen here. But it's also here the additional value, and here is that the size of the bubble shows also the weight, the exposure. Saying that not each company is the same, so improving something in a large company is more effort, but also more value for the group level. So therefore, you see here Germany has the biggest bubble compared to Asia, which is the smallest one. And then you see also the target, that investing in Germany to a risk balance of 2.0 would be above group level. The group level is here, 2.2 in 2 years can be achieved, even though that France and US would not contribute to the same level, but they need to go a long way. But on average, it's fairly reasonable and feasible that with that strategy and composition of different targets on subsidiary level, the group level can be achieved. Yes, that is one way, a rather easy way, what we want to show here as subsidiary steering. Just for demo purposes, in the real world, it's a little bit more complex, but for us, it was more important to show the principle, how you can use risk quantification and certain kind of metrics to treat different subsidiaries differently to come up with a global consolidated steering, which makes sense, that you invest differently into differently exposed and differently protected subsidiaries. The next step would then be, if you have done such a target setting, that you would do a planning for improvement programs. And that is something what we also can offer. We can do simulations based on the different status quo of each of the subsidiary to simulate different improvements programs to see whether which is the best one, also the best with the best return of security investment to come up and achieve these targets. This is something I would show into another webinar. That is not included here, but that would be the next natural step. Okay, so that is so far my live demo on this banking demo case. Do you have questions or comments, or you say it doesn't make sense at all, we do it totally differently? Good. Yeah, then I would love to go back to my presentation. Questions and answers. Yes. So are there any questions in the chat or Q&A section? Let's see. You can just raise your hand or just speak into the group as you like. Okay. Then, if not, then let's close this session. Again, summarizing, what I wanted to show to you. First of all, yes, I think it became clear subsidiaries typically are not the same. They have different risk exposures, they're differently protected, and therefore their protection and the future investment in protection should be aligned with the different exposures. I think that was one of the main findings in the beginning, talking about risk balance as a good score for it. Then going beyond just risk scores, risk quantification, what we do, expressing risk in euros and dollars, is also a consistent way. Along the way, how to quantify, you need to normalize also your regional risk assessment. What we offer here is, for example, if you have different risk assessment systematics framework like ISO or NIST, with our software, we can map that and then incorporate that so that even you have different systematics on a group level, you can consolidate and normalize the risk assessment via our platform and risk quantification. And with this, you normalize and make all the subsidiaries comparable and have a good basis for analytics. And then using all these metrics out of the risk quantification enables you doing the monitoring, but also the steering, that you understand why are subsidiaries different and why they should have different kind of investments to improve and to be consolidated and also then aggregated to a group level. So I have a split of a strategy on group level to distribute that to different subsidiaries can also be done with our platform. So therefore, this whole kind of using this transparency via risk quantification, all the metrics and steering mechanisms are a very good way to describe what you do as a group CISO in a way that the board can understand. That is what you always hear. It's so difficult to explain to a board of management about cyber risk because normally it's too technical. They do not understand the metrics normally are used. If you talk business language in euros and dollars, that is what board members like. And with our risk quantification, this is something which allows you to be very compelling also for your board of management. Chris, you have a comment. You are mute.
I hate to monopolize, but do you provide or do you have available statistical tables or checklists or whatever that describe what actions are most appropriate to reduce each of the 4 categories?
Yes, we do have. As one result of our risk quantification, we have a top 10 list of controls. So we are using more than 100 controls from the NIST framework, for example, and the top 10 based on the risk profile data you have entered are the most important who have the potential to reduce the risk. That is a good starting point. When I mentioned about improvement simulation, if you start with these controls to improve, but sometimes you have different kind of improvement ideas. You have a topic yet to say, okay, I need to go for DORA improvement, a very broad improvement, or you have zero trust. You are just focusing on a certain kind of area of controls. You can simulate each of them separately. Yes, you can do as many simulation as you like and see always if you can simulate an improvement in control level, how much the risk in euros and dollars is reduced. And then you can compare the cost for the improvement with the risk reduction, and that is what you use for a return of security investment. That is what we can offer here. That was not part of this webinar, but this is something, what is one of the most sought after feature of our risk quantification for group CISOs or CISOs as well. Okay, Good. So then I would like to thank you very much for your attention and your questions. As said, we have recorded this session, and we will also provide you with here some slides and screenshots from the demo, so that you can recap. And also, if you have additional questions, please come to us. We are always happy to do individual demos to explain individually to your business context what is the best solution for your problem regarding subsidiary steering. So thank you very much. Have a great day or evening, and hopefully see you later.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.